Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to work on another of the reels that Ron had sent me. This is a Pflueger Trusty, and I think we could probably get a couple of rhyming words with it, among them probably rusty. This is another one that Ron sent in, and it's loaded. You got probably years of dust or lint or dirt or something on here. A little bit of mold going on the side. But you know what? Still turns. And that's the important part. So we're going to show you how we can take this reel apart, clean it up, service it, and get it back out there fishing again, or for display purposes or whatever we want to do. So when I run into a reel like this, I like to just kind of start by just giving it a good squirt of penetrating oil to dissolve some of this old stuff that's just kind of hanging on here, whether it's dirt, grease, grime, combination of all of the above. Just kind of let it just sort of soak its way in. And while it's doing that, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders and essential personnel, everybody involved in keeping us safe during this pandemic. That's your uniformed services, police, fire, EMT, first aid, and the like. All of our first responders, our medical workers and hospital personnel, as well as all of the folks that are essential to everyday living, our transportation workers, all the delivery workers, whether it's food delivery or Amazon or any of those, doesn't matter. You're keeping us supplied as we try to get through this thing. Thank you for everything it is that you do. All right, so just remove the handle. I use the nut driver to do that. There's a screw thread that you could also remove that handle nut with if you like, just as convenient. I've taken off that first layer, and I'm very hopeful both of these knobs turn easily once you get some of that dust and grease and grime off of there. Just going to use a paper towel, see what we can get in terms of cleaning that outer shell. And it looks like this one's going to restore nicely. And this one's by Pflueger. So Ernest Pflueger was a competitor to Shakespeare back in the day. Now they're owned by the same company, Pure Fishing, a long time between there. This is the number 33. I don't know exactly when this reel was made, but Pflueger had 4 sons, and interestingly enough, they made some reels on their own, and it appeared under the 4 Brothers logo. So it was a rather tight community in reel making back in the 20s and 30s, and Pflueger and William Shakespeare and others were part of that. So it's always fun to get a little bit of the history of the reel. There's 2 side plate screws that hold this on. We're going to take those off. We have a direct drive reel, or a reel that's known as a knuckle buster, and fortunately this one has all its pieces and parts. Whenever you're buying one of these reels, the first thing you want to check, do we have the adjusters on each side? If you don't, you can probably stop right there, or consider that you're buying a reel for parts as opposed to a reel that you're going to restore. Those things are hard to find. Inside you'll see, simple enough construction. We have a main gear, and that main gear is going to drive 2 things. It's going to drive the gear on a spool, and it's going to drive the gear on this level wind. So I'm going to pull that level wind out so that I can get that chunk out behind it. And we should be able to do that. We should be able to get this pole out of here. That's what's holding the worm gear in right now. We'll give that a try. Amazing, after all these years. Let's just put a guess on this one as a 60-year-old reel. It's amazing when you go to remove that stuff that it can come out. Speaking of removing, it looks like the spool wants to remove itself, so we'll get that out of there. And now if you just gently tap, you might be able to get that pole out of there. There we go. All right, so we removed the worm gear and removed the line guide now. We got some cleaning up to do. That's about the biggest thing that's going on here. You can see the pawl. This is the pawl for the reel. We'll just mop up all this dirt underneath. Look at how beautifully that just cleans right up. I think a key to this really is just squirting it down with that penetrating oil, letting it do its thing. You don't have to kind of narrate everything while you're doing it. Just go for a cup of coffee or something and come back, and it generally loosens all of this old grease and grime and junk up out of here. And we're seeing that this one's coming together pretty nicely. That's also going to improve the performance of the reel without saying. Dirt is the reel's enemy, and if you find that you've got a reel that's all clogged down with stuff, well, chances are that the biggest problem that you have is that the dirt is getting in the way of the performance. Alright, we're just going to keep going. I use some cotton swabs. This one looks like it might need a little assist there, so let's go ahead and, now that we have a little bit better reach with this can, do that. And while I do that, I'm going to pull the main gear out. Just going to brush up behind here. Again, it's all about a bunch of dry grease in this reel case. And again, I believe this is probably aluminum from what I feel. It's not the heavy German silvered edition of the reel, but I'm not quite sure what it is exactly. Alright, we're going to just come on back here and get the grease off the back side. That was a little tough coming out, so we'll make sure that we clean that off. Penetrating oil and the light did that job. I'm going to check the teeth on the main gear, make sure that they're fine, and they are. And again, this main gear is going to drive two gears. It's going to drive the gear on the spool, and it's going to drive the gear that turns the worm gear. So we're just going to give it a good dose of fishing reel grease. I use Penn Precision reel grease for this, and I guess once we do that, we should be fine. And then we can put a little bit of grease where that bearing cap is, where the spool is going to go in. While we're at it with the spool, just again, this looks like just pitting as opposed to dirt. There's a little bit of dirt in there. Clean that off on both sides. Somebody asked me to do a video on how to cast these. I'm not good. I got to get a GoPro or something, I think. I just am not good with trying to do it with the equipment that I have. This line is ancient, but I'll tell Ronald to certainly take that line off. We still got cleaning to do. We have all that junk on the back end of the line guide, so let's get that off. And again, once you use that penetrating oil, most of this stuff will clean up pretty easily. If you need to go to something a little bit more aggressive, you'll probably find some steel wool and the like to mop up. I don't like to go too crazy on using any kind of mechanical cleaners or anything. It's just, I'd like to keep the patina of the reel the same if you can, without injuring the workability, if that's a term, of the reel. There's even dirt in the track for the line guide, so let's get that out of here. All right, looks like we've done a pretty good job here. And it's not a difficult reel because there's very few moving parts, which is one of the reasons why this thing has probably survived as long as it has. I do notice that it appears to be a little bit of misshapen there, but I wouldn't worry terribly about it. All right, don't lose the pawl. If you lose the pawl, you lose the reel. You can't find these parts around anymore. This has the line guide that is held in by the screw. Just going to take that cotton swab and get into where that pawl travels, just to make sure we get all that dirt out of there so that it travels nicely. And we can go about reinstalling this. So I'm going to make sure that I get some grease onto the gear for the line drive, the worm gear. Again, the main gear is going to drive that in addition to driving the spool. And you can put a light coating of grease on here. I generally oil these, but I don't think this one's going anywhere where I have to worry about it too much. Start your gear in. And again, just got a little bit more dirt here I want to clean out of that. And get your line guide assembly, your line guide itself, putting the worm gear in, get that on, and make sure that loads into the track. And then make sure you get seated on the other side here. And that's about all you need to do on this, short of install the pawl. So let's come over here. That pawl is here. That fits in that hole in the back, just like that. And you can go ahead and grab that screw. Use a micro driver for this. I noticed that when I did this earlier that the big screwdriver didn't quite, it got it enough, but it didn't get it all the way. So let's go ahead and use this to hold that in. And then you want to make sure that the pole seats. Don't tighten it all down until you have that riding in the track. Then you can tighten it down, give it a spin, and it's like it was just made yesterday. All right, both ends of the spool have been worked on there. I'm going to put a little bit of grease into the back cavity with that adjuster. Just like that. Looks like after all these years that click ring will still work too. When you put the spool in, make sure you don't trap the line. This is a very fine line here. Once you've greased that up, got the line guide set, come on over to the drive side then. And I like to install the drive side by putting the handle on. That way you don't have to worry about any play in the main gear. Sometimes that main gear will fall into the case, and then you're kind of stuck with trying to get the handle back on. So I'm going to go put that handle on before I put the case on. Give it a twirl, make sure it's doing what it should be doing. Come on over to your case then. You want to align the screws, and you can get your shaft into the position. And we got a turning wheel, that's always good. Grab those two small screws, get those in. Then if we got a little chirp, you can use those two side plate adjusters usually to get the chirp out of there. Spool adjusters, one on each side. Well, let's see. Everything's been oiled, cleaned, greased. Looks like a whole different reel for the most part than it was when it came in. We'll see how it performs. I like these little old reels. They're kind of fun and they're a throwback to time. Look at that. Wow. What can I say? Pflueger Trusty, model number 1933, made in the USA. Pflueger was probably making these in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio. That's where they were based out of. And this one's ready to go fishing again. So I hope you enjoy that. That's how you service the Pflueger 1933. This is called a knuckle buster because it does spin backwards. There is no anti-reverse. When you go to cast, you're going to simply watch the reel line out, and then you're going to reel in, providing your own drag on the way in. If you needed a little bit more free spool, you can adjust out with these on both sides. That'll give you an easier turning wheel. So that's it. That's your Pflueger Trusty. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you all please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. If you have a reel that you would like repaired, please contact me on the business card that follows. If you'd like to see some more of these, please subscribe. And again, if you're a first responder, thank you for everything it is you do to keep us safe during the pandemic. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.